I don't know why I see a diamond in like a Pillsbury Doughboy, but I don't know why that's always my visual. Hello, and welcome to the Weeder Life podcast. I'm your host, Erica Weederlight, and I am the CEO and founder of Weederlight. I help humans who feel inadequate, broken, self-conscious, and shamed around their sexuality to reclaim their aliveness, their power, and to have a renewed relationship to pleasure while preparing themselves to feel hella confident to date others and themselves. AKA, I'm guiding people to live their #best lives. I have to give you a fair warning. I do unfortunately swear like a drunken sailor, so if you do have little ones by you, just be sure to pop in some earbuds. All right, friends, let's buckle up and let's rock it to this week's episode. All right. I am jammed. I am ready to go in real time. It's freaking Valentine's Day, and I hope, Donna, you don't mind that you're my Valentine, because I am so fucking excited for this conversation. My guest today is such an amazing human. Donna Otmani is just the best. I could just personally talk about her. But Donna is a soul-centered coach. She's a mentor. She's a facilitator. She has all these cool certificates and degrees, especially she has a master's degree actually in spiritual psychology, which we're going to have to talk about. And she's completed courses in soul-centered leadership, soul-centered professional coaching, all the goods, all the good soul-centered working, living, doing it up. And why I love Donna is not only is she doing this like deep dive of like soul work and knowing intuition and knowing the divine and attuning and all the juice, she is also just a badass. Before we got on the call, we talked about, how can we have fuck and God in the same sentence? And also she brings such ease, joy, humor to all of it. And that's what I love. And she even writes in her bio, like, she does all of this like deep, amazing soul searching with like this killer sense of humor, a potty mouth, which we know I love, and this like rock star ability to make this sacred down to earth work, which is sometimes feels very airy fairy, very practical and for all. And I love that you do make that work practical for all, because we all need this work. So we'll jump into the goods. But before we do, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh my God. Thank you for having me here.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. And there's so many questions. There's so many things that I can just jump into. But like, before we do, because this is such a big part of your work, like, how do you feel like you do balance and honor, like, fuck, like, like, fuck, potty mouth, like, being a human and the beauty, as I burp at you, actually. I'm sorry.
Yes, it's not a good podcast until someone passes gas of some form.
First 30 seconds, I'm like, Donna, let me vomit at you. But that's it, right? Like, what is that like for you? How do you teach clients to be messily imperfect, human, and then also have this like gorgeous relationship to the divine where they can, have that airy-fairy relationship, but also have it rooted in reality and rooted in groundedness?
Yeah. It's such a good question, because I feel like before I went to the University of Santa Monica to get my master's degree in spiritual psychology, I would have not been able to answer that question, because for me, God lived outside of me. God was this like white man in the sky that like tells me, like is there to punish me, or like, is doling out who gets to do what. And it was very disconnecting. And so what I love about spiritual psychology is the whole premise is that we're divine beings having and using a human experience so that we can grow and evolve in consciousness, so we can learn to have greater access to the peace inside of us, the love inside of us, the joy inside of us, which is all of our authentic nature. So it was like, I always say, I feel like it's like how Harry Potter must have felt learning about Hogwarts. It was like, holy shit, I'm not just this like human that like has to live and suffer and, have you read Harry Potter?
Or whatever? Oh, yes.
Not everybody has, but it was like learning that like, it was like all of a sudden everything made sense. It was like, yes, okay, now I get it. Now I know when something's happening to me, it's something I'm supposed to be learning. If I'm saying I'm upset because something just happened to me, that's my sign that like school's in session, and like learning how to work with anything that's happening in life, not just be like, oh, I understand something's happening for my good, but how to actually use it. Like, that's what I do with my clients is I teach them like, all right, that just came up. Let's work with it. And before going to school and studying this, it would be like, I'll go journal about it to get it out of my system, or I'll go talk to someone and I'll cry and I'll move it through. Or, some people would go exercise or whatever it might be. But it was like, I actually started to learn how to track what was going on in my psyche and how to work with it in a way that I then could release it for sometimes for the final time. Other times I just would get less triggered by it, or I could get untriggered faster or get back to balance faster. But that's how you can be both, the chick that says fuck and the one that's like, also really relies on my relationship with God. So
yes, I'm upset. Yeah, I'm like, wait, we could talk about that. I mean, you did a master's in that, so we could talk about that for 100 hours. So I'm like, wait, I have so much about that. That might have to be another day because that in itself is amazing. But I love, I know we talked about this before this call, and I know you were talking, and I think we kind of have the same belief system that like triggers are not like this big scary thing. They're actually an opportunity to, because sometimes we're like, I'm triggered. It's like, oh no, this is cool. Like I actually there's an experience for me. There's information, there's data for me to get curious. So can you talk about your relationship to triggers and how you work with that? And yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I will just be the first to say, I still don't get excited when I have a trigger. I'm still like, fuck, haven't I done enough work? Haven't I already gone through this? But truthfully, the idea that, yes, if I'm triggered, I'm going to talk about, because I know your audience is love and dating and relationships, right? And that's always been an area of opportunity for me. My shit comes up just like it does for everybody else. And it was hilarious. Just last year around Valentine's Day, I started dating someone. And on the surface, it looks like he meets all the he's like really good communicator and he's this and he's that. And, he's like actually kind and, he has a kid like me. I'm like, I'm nailing it. I've changed. I've like grown past my crap. I'm like attracting a different guy. And then what do you know? The same old feeling starts to come up. The same old, like I'm starting to be annoyed by him and I'm a little disappointed and I'm starting to get prickly and I'm like, what's going on? And again, I'm like, I know better. So we have at our core, our authentic self, the parts of us that know, like connected to our soul, we know what's going on. We're kind of tracking everything that's happening, kind of unaffected, in life. When I say unaffected, it's like, we're pretty neutral, like at our core. It's like, we're just like, nothing really gets us. But then we have these conditioned parts of us that get created in different times of our life. Let's say, as we grow up at different age stages, and could be at any age stage, you could have lots of different parts. But I'll speak to like, just as a clear example, for me in dating, I had a lot of stuff around, I can remember it as if it was yesterday, 4th grade. And we all have one of these stories, right? I remember being in 4th grade and really liking this one boy, and he liked the girl in my class that was the skinny blonde girl. And I am a chubby little Italian girl, sometimes more than chubby. And so for me, I made a decision back then. One of the decisions I made was guys only like a certain body type and look. And so when we make a decision like this, now believe me, as an adult, I know better. I've had plenty of experiences where guys have been attracted to me, guys like me, like I was married, like, it's like, I've got it going on. I've figured it out. Right. But sometimes if it's part of our soul's curriculum, meaning it's like one of the things we came in here to learn as a divine being, let's say for me was learning to, for me, in this case, it was like learning to love who I was and to like find my own beauty and like really love myself while also being in relationship. It was not only does the guys that I like have a certain type, which is the skinny, pretty blonde girl. The guys who like me are the guys that I don't want to date. They're not someone that I'm attracted to. They're not someone that I wasn't finding attractive. It was always like the guys that like me are not the guys that like are a fit for me, like for who I am and what I love. So I'm dating this guy and I'm, on the surface, it looks like it's going well. And then all of a sudden I start to notice things that are like not a fit for me. And so because this story or this belief that I have going on inside of me is still there because I've not yet tended to it, and I'll go into a little bit more about how I work with it, but I haven't done the self-forgiveness work to the point where it's just still living in me and untended to at these moments, right? So when it starts to show up, the way most of us will handle that is we'll either start to make the guy wrong and not want to date them, or, like just blow up the relationship or ghost them or whatever we'll do. It'll be about, oh, it's the person out there that's not a fit for me. And then I'll change outer world reality. I'll get on a different dating app, or I'll work with a matchmaker instead, because it's about and there's validity to the outer stuff too. Don't get me wrong. But it's like mostly, how do I work with whatever the shit is that starts to get stirred up as I'm in relationship with another human, or as I'm going through the dating process or whatever, things like that. So I had to really work with myself, meaning, well, I don't know, how much do you want me to get in? Or is there another question?
I'm already like, ooh, this is a good one. No, it's so good. And I'm also, my brain is going to 100 places, and I'm laughing because, and I do want you to go there. So that's I'll answer that. I'm like, let's go deep. But the first thing that I'm thinking too is it's so funny, right? Like, especially in love and dating, I'm thinking about my current circumstances with a partner, and I'm like a newborn that just cries all of the time. You know what I mean? I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I'm like, I have done this fucking work for years, And it's funny because what's so crazy is, pretend I'm in a workshop or just out in the real world, the trigger comes up and I'm like, not triggered by it, not moved by it. But damn, in partnership, oh, good night. It's insane. Like, I'm like, this is not a trigger. I've worked through this. I've healed this. And then I'm like, oh, I'm crying every other day. What's happening? Like, this is an exorcism.
I know. Sometimes I'm like, when am I think this is a natural thing. And again, it's for anyone out there listening, this could show up. For some people, it shows up in love and dating. Other people experience it in finances or in career. It's like, we all have those places where it's like, man, it's part of our soul's curriculum to be like, there's still more work to do here. We're going to keep working with it. But I know when I was dating this guy, and P.S., I'm not dating him anymore. So sometimes it is about not being with the right person. But, it's like, when I was going through it, even me, I was like, for fuck's sake, when am I going to be over this? Can't I just find a human to hang out with and fall in love? Like, really shouldn't be this hard. And I hear a lot of my clients will come to me with like feeling frustrated with themselves, that it's the same thing. They think they're over it. They're not. Why am I not over it? Last year I called it, I did a thing around Groundhog's Day that was called it was like, am I living in Groundhog's Day? Why does this same pattern keep coming up over and over and over again? And I still have to work with it. And I would just say, again, to everyone out there, the first thing is, we're always getting it at new levels. It's like, we have done a lot of work. I know, Erica, I know what you've invested in yourself. And I know, like, you're like me. It's like, we're constantly working and growing. So first and foremost, it's as compassionate as we can be with ourselves, that it's still another opportunity to learn. And that when we are that deeply triggered, it's really a time for a lot of self-compassion. And my teachers used to say, it's like, for something to heal, it's like healing is actually the application of love to the parts inside that are hurting. So here's this part of you, right? That's like crying because she's really still triggered and like really hurt, or whatever's getting activated. And I know many women, especially I mostly work with women. I have worked with men too. And even them, it's like, we get to a part where we're like, why haven't I gotten this yet? We can get really upset with ourselves. Like, I know better. And here I am, I'm still acting out, or getting triggered. And it's like, yeah, it's cool to be human and have those thoughts and beliefs and like upsets and be annoyed by the process. But when you can catch yourself, then it's like, all right, I need to talk to this part of me. Like, I'm talking actual dialogue. And this is a place where it's an opportunity that people have to really get up close and personal and in relationship with this aspect of them that's really hurting.
I'm laughing at how you said like the healing is the love, right? Like the love, because it's so funny. I know you and I just have to add this, like you and I know are like go-getters, and we're going to talk about like the one Wonder Woman archetype and overcoming under earning, all that shit we're going to talk about because but it's funny because especially for, and I won't speak for you, but our archetypes, and especially for me, when I'm like I'm triggered, I go into action mode. Like, okay, I'm going to book a therapy session, I'm going to talk to my coach this week, I'm going to get into Voxer, you know, and it's like I want to control, like I think it's coming from a place of, oh, well, I'm doing the work. But in actuality, which is great, but it's a little bit of self crucifixion, you know, because I'm subconsciously telling myself the story like, I'm wrong, you need to be fixed, you know what I mean? So it's like just because I'm saying like, oh, well, I'm going to, I'm going, you know, setting up a therapy session or setting up a coaching session. It's like, sure, that's fabulous. Like that's great. But the underbelly of it is it's coming from a scarcity place of you're not enough, you're not worthy, you need to go fix yourself. So that is interesting. That's why I'm like, ooh, that like love quote hit good with the healing and having self-compassion.
Yeah, like healing is the application of love to the parts inside that hurt. And I do think that one of the things that spiritual psychology helped me with is to recognize how to hold these parts of myself. Again, one of the big things. So look out in the world, people, go to your coach and therapist when shit's going on. That's a smart move. That's actually a smart move. Like we're full on that. But what I like what you are noticing inside yourself is like when that's coming up, it's around, there's a part of you that doesn't feel held or supported and wants to be held and supported in that place. Would that be accurate?
Totally. And it's coming from, yes, exactly. Because it's not coming from a place of, oh, this is I mean, sometimes it is like a place of like, oh, I do this thing because it makes me feel aligned and all the things. But when I'm crunchy and when I'm in a triggered state, it's like, hurry, hurry, hurry. You need to be fixed. You're broken. Like it's this panic energy. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. And what I've really found, even for myself, is that part, now again, I keep saying it's a part of you because I think what happens is a lot of people put the two together. They're like, it's me, I'm always triggered, I'm this, I'm that. Well, when we think that, then there's no space to work with it. And what's actually more true, again, if we come from the place of we are divine beings having and using a human experience, it's like I'm a soul having and using this human body, this human personality, this like everything about myself in the world. Like then when a part of me gets triggered, there's an authentic self part of me that can hold space for the part that's triggered. So this will make sense more in a second. So, and because what you're right, that panicky feeling comes from like, holy shit, I now feel disconnected from my truth, from myself. And I'm like activated, because that's true. At that moment, you aren't over in your authentic self. You're over in like you're in the triggered part. So then we feel very like ungrounded, unsafe, and our beings will always like at our natural state, we feel connected and whole and balanced. When that other part gets activated, can feel terrifying inside because you're like, holy shit, I'm disconnected. I don't like that feeling. And I want to get back to balance. I want to get back to homeostasis. I want to get back to like, you know, the part of me that knows all is well. So I love the way you're describing it because it feels like somebody, what is happening? You know? So learning to recognize that, okay, there's a part of me outside of me, but like if I were to work with it, I might say to you, do you mind if I just have you try it?
Please. Yeah. Yes.
So it's like, so to the part of you that's like, let's say got triggered in your relationship recently. So it's like, can you picture, like I'd invite you to like, and this is based on Gestalt therapy. So it's, you know, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a therapist, but this particular strategy of how to work with these parts of you is so helpful in any scenario and all scenarios. So first and foremost, I would want you to picture like, how old is that approximately, the part of you that feels that way? Like if you were is she a teenager? Is she a little one? We won't go too revealing, but it's
I think it's funny. It's so funny because I've been doing this so much in coaching too. And I have two pieces of me that are really up. It's like the 8-year-old version of me and the 15-year-old version of me. They are like out to play.
Okay, good. So good because it's like the cool thing is that I also want to tell people, it's like, as you learn to work with these various parts of you, if unattended to, they're like the kid that keeps pulling on your skirt. So if they're not tended to, what do you think's going to happen? They're just going to keep showing up. They're going to be like, they're not getting their needs met in some way or form. I'm sure you're doing, I'm not saying you in particular, we all do this, right? But it's like, if we don't give them what they need, then they come around to get their needs met, and they might act out, or they're acting through whatever decision they made at that time is what's getting activated. So if it's like, I don't get the guys that like I want, and that starts to come up, then, I got to work with that part. So what is it that your 8 or 15-year-old,
what's the trigger?
Yeah. Like, what do they say?
Yeah, probably it's, I wonder, this is kind of like the broader scope. I wonder if it's like abandonment shit, because I've had lots of deaths. So it's like everyone leaves, everyone goes away. Especially a healthy relationship feels actually more threatening.
Right. Because he's got his own sense. You guys both have your own sense of well-being.
Right. And also like the scary, like if I know someone's toxic, I'm like, okay, they're going to go away. So at least I know the pattern's going to happen. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, I know my heart's going to be broken, but there's a shelf life to this, and we know this pattern. But someone's healthy and is like, I'm still here. I'm like, oh, fuck. You know what I mean? I'm like, what does that look like? Like, that almost feels more threatening. And then like the rug's really going to get pulled out from underneath you. You know what I mean? Because I signed up for the toxic people because I was like, oh, they're not well. Like, so I'm like, I know it's going to come, it's going to hurt, but I got, with this healthy person, it's like, uh-oh. What do you mean? You're why are you here still? Why you keep picking me? What are you doing? I don't know this pattern. This is weird in my body. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then that's unsettling because it's new. It's like so new and uncertain. She then feels, like you said, I don't know if I can trust this because I don't have a landscape to like live in. I don't know this pattern. So anything can happen. Right. So the way I would work with something like that is like, and again, does she feel like the 8-year-old or the 15-year-old? It doesn't really matter which one it is, but when you feel into that, what does she have, or is she older?
Ooh, there's different shades of abandonment. Like the 8-year-old has one shade and the 15-year-old has a different shade. I think by 15, it was locked, land, and loaded. You know what I mean? So I think 8, it began. And then by 15, it was like signed, sealed, delivered. This is your truth.
Got it. Okay. So we'd probably want to talk to the 8-year-old. And again, the reason I'm asking to get somewhat specific, or why I would encourage someone to get somewhat specific, is because we want to start picturing them outside of us, in front of us, as if you were going to talk to a coaching client or a child of yours, or right. Like, so if you see it's your 8-year-old, you'd even want to maybe go like, and how is she like right now? You're like inviting her forward. So is she sitting there like with her head down and her arms crossed? Is she wearing overalls? What's she wearing? Because it just helps you like see again, like you're getting to know her specifically in a new way. So do you have an idea of like what's she looking like? Is she facing the wall and not looking at you? I
think so. Yeah. It's like no shade to her, but it's like a non-vibrant piece of me, if that makes sense. Which I think there's shame because I was so, and I still am, but it's all pieces of us. So many of my exterior pieces are very vibrant. And it was very, how do I say this? Like it was not celebrated / it was really brought up when that piece would come out, because it's like, well, you're the happy one. You're the outrageous one. What the fuck is this? You know what I mean? So not only is she in her own pain of abandonment and wounds, but she's also like, fuck, I shouldn't be here because this is really... So there's an extra layer of guilt and shame just baked in, which is great.
Yeah, which is fabulous.
Yeah, it just really helps the cause.
Well, guess what? She is not set in stone, which is so beautiful, but it's good to recognize how she's feeling right now. And I really want to be of encouragement. And first of all, I acknowledge you for like being willing to like play in this way, because it's so helpful for people. I think I really want it. Like my mission is like, I want to normalize this. I want to normalize that we have different parts of us. I want to normalize talking to yourself. Like, I don't care how crazy it sounds. Like, it's really the game changer I have found for myself and my clients around finding one piece inside of themselves and like this strength because they know, and their ability to like be more free in life because they recognize it doesn't matter then what comes up because I know how to work with it. It goes back to the same thing all the time. It's like, I could now, oh, okay, it's going well in dating and shit's showing up around, I don't know, health. And then I'm like, okay, now I got to like, but I know what to do. I know to like, who's inside, who's not, who's triggered, or who's got some old idea of how life was back then. And like, it's really fun then to like, not fun. That is never fun for me, but it's really
freeing, right? In a way, empowering, right?
Empowering. Like, I don't feel so victimized by my circumstances. I no longer, I want to say no longer because that's not true. Because sometimes when you're really in the trigger, it does not. All the shit goes out the window for me too, you know. And then I'm calling my coach. I'm like, what's happening? So anyway, so for you, for this part that has all those feelings, it's like, what I would encourage then is a dialogue with her. So the way I do is called a 2-chair process. So you can either have 2 chairs facing each other, or you could just move back and forth in your seat, but you can have a dialogue with this part of you. So you might ask her or say to her, yeah, I've really been feeling this abandonment stuff coming up again. Like, tell me what you need from me. What's going on? What are you afraid of with this new guy? Like, or I don't know how new he is, but what are you afraid is going to happen in our relationship? Like, because I really felt you this weekend or whatever. So you'd invite her into a dialogue, and then you move over into the other chair and you let her talk to you. So she talks to you like, oh my God, I'm so freaked out. Like, I don't know what she's going to say. I don't know if you want to try it.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking about this because this is a huge component of my work too. And it's been so, first of all, for myself, it's so, once I started, you know, because it's like I had to learn this as a human first and then teach it because I'm not just going to regurgitate, you know, gotta live it. And I remember it was so, first doing this work, it was so mind-boggling. And now with my clients, it's funny, this last few weeks we've been working with a lot of my clients with their like subpersonality of like their anxiety. And that was so freeing because especially, you know, with anxiety, it's like, I'm a victim to it. I'm a victim and totally powerless. So when they found, and me too, when we found our archetypes, and I was walking clients through archetypes, they're like, oh my God, it's just this bitch again. Like, I love her, but why is she bad? And they could kind of dialogue with her like, hey babe, what's going on? And it's not this like, thing, you know?
Right. Tell me more about the archetype thing, because I don't do it through archetypes. We do it, but it sounds very similar.
It's very similar. That's why I was like, I'm jamming on this because this is part of similar to my work. So same vibe. And also it's funny, I'm actually playing with so that's what I was doing with my clients. Like we always find different archetypes. So we were playing a little bit with the anxiety. I had people dress up as like, last week, cause you know, we love a good dress up, and little ritual. But we should have them like show up as one of their higher selves that they're like scared to stretch into. So that's like, oh, I'm scared. But so like I had someone dressed as the money queen and she came on the call as the money queen, but I'm like, you don't just hop on with your outfit. You know, she did a whole ritual before and created an altar and made, you know, music. And then someone did the goddess and someone did the so everyone that was like, oh, I want to know this archetype more. And so what they did is, okay, yes, we came onto the session, you were dressed, but it's like, how would that person show up? How would they speak? How would they walk? How would they enjoy their kombucha? You know, like, how does that person show up? And the lighter ones are so fun, but I'm like, we also got to do the crunchy ones. Like, we have to do the anxiety. We have to do the piece of you that is manipulative. You know, they have a voice too. You know, it's not just like love goddess, but I'm also like, who's the crunch? Like, what's the crunch about? What do they need? What are their wants? So that was up. And it's funny. So I was doing that work with my clients, and then with me working with my coach, I actually found the 15-year-old version of me, and we like named her and like I'm trying now. I'm in the phase of like tending to her. So it's like, what does she need? You know, like how can I nourish her? Because again, there was so much shame. So it's like, go away, go away, go away, lock the door, throw the key. So now it's like, hey, sorry about that. You're welcome. How can I bring you, how can I bring you to the table? And so, our work really does. I love that we share that.
Yeah, totally. That's beautiful. I love that piece of like getting them to dress her up, to dress up as, and like, because again, it's going back to like the piece of us that goes, oh, we have different aspects that we can call upon. And I love that you're calling forward. In my work with coaches, I'll do things like work with your inner CEO, work with the part of you that does know versus the part that keeps going, I don't know how to get clients. I'm like, there's a part inside of you that knows. If you were to let her play and have a voice for a little bit, what would that sound like? And, so it goes back to like, yeah, we're not just this static person, but we're here to learn and grow and develop and all of the things that you're talking about that you do with your clients too. It's really cool.
Well, speaking of this because I'm like, speaking of archetypes, we gotta pay her homage because I feel like the Wonder Woman archetype, she can be great, she can be badass, and I know for both of us, like she can also be like SOS, so there's she can be so beautiful and great and all the things, and then also there's a big ass shadow underbelly of the Wonder Woman archetype, also that applies to all genders. The I can do it, I have that, like that type of archetype that's like, I got it, I'm self-reliant, I'm on my own. And you talk people through this all the time, like taking people out of this, like we talked about, like overcoming under earning, I'm giving person. Can you talk to us about that? Like, what does that look like? How did you get yourself out of that? How do you coach people? How do you coach people? Yeah. I know, you're like, I got this, mom.
Oh, I know, right? The only thing I want to add before we go there about that last part that we talked about is like, one of the things that I think that helps these parts of us to come into, like, again, they want to feel held, which is going to tie into the Wonder Woman thing, right? I think a lot of us are missing that experience of feeling held. We did not grow up feeling held. It was like, if we did have a lot of emotion, we were praised if we were happy and good and compliant and all that other shit. And so like, we learned that there's a lot of value in figuring shit out for ourselves, for having things. We get praised when we're like totally able to like self-manage, self-soothe, don't need a lot. Like that was like totally in my household. That was the thing. It was like, don't need a lot because there's not a lot to give, like there's not a lot left over. So I learned to be like, hey, I got a lot of attention when I was the good one, the happy one, the like funny one, the one that was helpful, all that other stuff. So when these parts come forward, that dialogue part, or bringing them into the light, like you do with your work of like getting them to like be seen and allow that, part of that is just so healing in and of itself, is just being validated and seen and tended to, so that they start to like relax and they start to get updated as to what actually is helpful and works now, but they need needs met. They have a very loving reason for coming forward. They're not trying to, I think a lot of times we think they're trying to cock block us, or it's our resistance. We're sabotaging ourselves. And I understand why people say that. And I think that there are parts that don't want to move forward because then it's like, it's scary, it's new, it's not familiar. And their whole job is designed to keep us in place and to keep things as is, because that feels more in our control. So I just want to like, let everybody know that when you have these parts that are coming forward, it's for a loving reason. And if we could just like, it thinks it's doing you, it's protecting you somehow. And just, that's the value of doing that work, is like, so that it just gets what it needs. A lot of my work is based on like, let's be kind, let's be on our own side, let's be loving to ourselves. Like, and that's been a big thing of what I've needed to learn for myself, is all, how to do all those things. So anyway, I just wanted to circle back and put it in a bow.
I think that's awesome. And just to add on top of that is, I think that's also something that always shocks my clients, is I'm like, all right, we're going to do this, pretend the archetype of the anxiety, the self-saboteur. They're like, fuck, I'm scared to meet them. And they meet them, and it's usually not someone that's just pure evil. Usually it's a piece of them that's like, hey, like, I'm just coming out in this flavor because in actuality, I really want to help you. I just say it in this flavor. I just come out in this flavor. And that shocks people because they're like, I'm so scared to be with this piece of myself because they think it's going to self-implode, or this piece of them is evil. It's like, usually they're just like, hey, I actually want you to survive. Or sometimes some archetypes even thrive, and they're like, I'm just happen to come out in this form, but and that's what's actually so freeing, because if we look at it, we're like, oh, it takes some of the charge away of like, oh, I actually can be with this piece. And I always say to my clients, I'll make this brief is like, can we be with them? Can we with them? And almost like a diamond, can we like extract it out of, I don't know why I see a diamond in like a Pillsbury Doughboy, but like I don't know why that's always my visual.
Okay.
But I know, like make it a croissant roll. But I'm like a diamond. Can we take the diamond out of the dough or out of the, whatever, the cave? Like, what is the diamond? And we can let the cave or whatever we're taking out of is the charge, is the fear, is all that shit. But like, what is the diamond? And usually the diamond is the lesson or what they want to help you with. Like, but there are usually gems there. But we're so fucking scared to look because it's been demonized. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Like it's been so misunderstood. So I love how you're talking about that. And for the way, once we like understand what those parts are doing, in my world, what we do is, again, that loving, healing is the application of love to the parts inside that hurt. We do a process called compassionate self-forgiveness, where we'll catch like, what are the beliefs that this part has that are no longer true? What are the misidentifications? What are the misunderstandings? Like, and then we do compassionate self-forgiveness for them so that we get to like really claim like, oh, I forgive myself for buying into the belief that guys only like skinny blonde girls. I forgive myself for being that little girl that believes that the people that she's attracted to will never be attracted to her because of this one guy. Like I forgive myself for buying into that misunderstanding. And the more compassionate I can be with my, and the more I just can get clear, what is the old programming that just is not going to ever allow me to create something new if I don't, you know what I mean? Like that, or that's keeping this pattern in place. That's a better way of saying it. That's like, it's what's between, it's like the clouds and the sun. It's like the sun's there. That part of me that, is a loving being and ready for relationship is there. And then there's all these beliefs and whatnot that are between me and it. So the more I can forgive those misunderstandings, let go of the beliefs, and then claim new things. Like the truth is lots of guys have been attracted to me. And the truth is I'm not attracted to every guy. So not every guy is going to be attracted to me. And it's okay. Like, it doesn't mean anything about me. Like, then I'm free to be in the world differently. It's like I've put on new glasses that can see that there's other options and other opportunities and ways of being in the world. So anyway.
No, that's really good. And wait, I love that. I'm like, let's go here. And I'm like, wait, hold on. Because I'm like, wait, this is such a bomb. Because especially if someone's new to this, it's like, holy, like, this is not this is a thorough topic. But what I love too is, and I think we talked about this on our like little pre-call, was the shame of all of this too, is that like, the deal of like the self-fulfilling prophecy. And I think it's, like the brain, like how the brain and the subconscious, exactly. And it's like, we're going to find evidence that this is true. So take the skinny blonde girl example. It's like our brain and our subconscious is seeking then, oh my God, see, now Johnny picked Ariana, who's a skinny blonde girl, and we're like, see, that is the way to, like, our brain, because it's programmed in there, goes and keeps finding evidence and it's seeking that story to have that story be justified. And we're like, see, I can't fight myself. See, there's evidence. And it's like, obviously all the work you're talking about. And then I always have clients I make them find evidence for other things. So they're like, if they're like, oh, I hate all men. I'm like, okay, that's could still, like, we could still work through the charge of the misdoings and all that. But like, can you look for evidence of good men? And then they Voxer me like, all right, this man opened the door for me, whatever. And they find evidence of men or pretend money, like money's evil, money, oh wait, I saw someone donate $1,000 to this amazing charity or whatever it is. But a piece of it, I think, because our brain is naturally going to want to support that narrative, it's going to find evidence to support that narrative. So I'm trying to get clients to be like, let's get behind a healthier narrative and find evidence that is true.
Yeah, genius. That's such a good way of doing it, because it's true. It's like, in the world of personal growth and development, people will be like, you just need a new affirmation and like, just journal like the way you want it to be or whatever. And that helps too, because it always helps when we start looking in a more positive direction. And for things that aren't core things, that can shift things kind of easily. But I think like what you're saying is like, you're helping them get in there. And that's what I do too. It's like, let's get in there, let's work with the stuff. And then we got to look for what's true and start building the narrative. Like you said, it's like, if we don't start telling another story, Barbara Stanley used to say that a lot, like, especially in Overcoming Under Earning, she would say, you got to stop telling the same story. because the same story just keeps the narrative in place. Like you were saying, it just keeps your brain going in those same grooves. And so the work of identifying the old crap, getting it out, compassionate self-forgiveness, and or the different ways that you've talked about doing it, and then really starting to tell the truth or keep focusing on what's the narrative, what is it you're wanting to create? Oh, if I want to feel free in dating, then I've got to start like really looking at what's the story I'm telling myself about dating. If I'm like, I'm ready to date, and then I like open Tinder and I want to like throw my phone through a brick wall, probably not going to get me the results that I'm wanting. So we get to use it for our own growth and upliftment, but it's important to do both the excavating and the future building. And I think a lot of times future building is like done on top of or without addressing the under stuff. You know what I mean?
It's true. I always say, and I say this on the podcast so many times, but I'm like, it's like having water. It's like you put the Brita water in, like the little beads come out, like it's dirty water. And sometimes the self-development, it's pouring clean water over dirty water. Unfortunately, it sucks, but sometimes you got to dump the water, you got to rinse it out and clean it, and then you start fresh, but so often we're like, I'm going to do these positive affirmations, or I'm going to spiritually bypass over some things that need holding. And the cool thing is they both can coexist of like, I can be future tripping and jamming out, and I could also hold dark grief, and like they both could be happening at the same time,
Yeah. Can I share one more thing from spiritual psychology that I thought was so eye-opening to me? And maybe this is like old hat to lots of people, but if we look at how life is, it's like there's physical world, there's 4 levels. There's physical world reality, mental level, emotional level, and then the spiritual level. Okay. On the spiritual level, it's kind of like I said, where everything's like, it's neutral. It doesn't have a positive or a negative. It's just, peace, love, joy, all that shit. But if on the other levels, we're always seeking alignment. So let's say on the outer world reality, on physical world reality, I want to do something new, like find a relationship, start dating, have sex. I don't know, whatever it is that we're like out there seeking. Now I'm trying to make a change. Like, let's say I'm moving over on the line on the physical world reality. So when I make a change like that, it has to happen that any beliefs or emotional patterns that have kept me at the other level have to come up and be addressed and moved over in alignment with the new thing that I'm creating. Like my thoughts, beliefs, and emotional being needs to be lined up, or I'm going to go right back to like where I was before. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think that's the delusion sometimes of getting the thing, that you think all of it's going to go away.
Oh yeah. You're like, well, I'll just start dating. If I want to have a relationship, then the thing to change is I'm just going to start dating. So that is a step. That is a good step. That's one place you could start. Or you could see, it also works in other ways. You might go, I'm going to deal with my shit about love. So I'm going to journal. I'm going to work with a coach. I'm going to do this. But if I'm not taking new steps on the outer world reality, that shit's not going to happen either. Like, it's like all the levels need to stay aligned in order. It's again, why people have trouble losing weight, quitting smoking, saving money. It's the same thing. It's like, because they're trying to make a change in outer world reality without dealing with the inner levels. And when I understood that, all of a sudden, I wasn't so surprised when shit would come up when I was trying to start something new. Like, hey, I'm going to quit my job and start my own coaching business. Well, you can bet. I mean, I was having panic attacks. I was like, what is happening? It's like, it was bringing up so much shit, but it's like, I might be like, what is happening? But I'm also not surprised because I'm like, right, there's stuff to deal with. So,
right. And that's what they say sometimes. This is like, they always say, I'm thinking of abundance, but they're like, you could have $50 million and still feel so fucking poor. Or you could be like, oh, I have a partner now, I'm good. It's like, some of your shit's still going to come up. Like it's exact. I think we're delusioned sometimes into being like, once I have the thing, all will be well. And it's like, yikes. Yikes.
Right. Or people will be like, I lost weight and thought I'd feel so happy. And then they're like, oh, I don't feel any happier. It's like when we learn that like, hey, I want to change something. I'm aware my shit's going to come up. I now know how to work with it, or I'm working with someone that can help me. Like, I think this is a lot of reasons why people will seek certain coaches. Cause I know for me, it's like, oh, when I first left my job at the School of Women's Arts, I was like, holy shit, I went from being the person that knew everything. I'd been with Regina over 10 years total. I went from being the person that like had the most knowledge of the business to someone that didn't know what the fuck she was doing. I knew how to coach, but I didn't know how to run a business. And all of a sudden I was like, what is going on inside of me? You know? And I'm like, oh, I've totally shifted who I am out. You know what I mean? And I've got to now deal with that. And I've got to learn how to be with the parts of me that's like, I don't even know why I started that topic. Do you know why I started that train of thought? Yeah. All of a sudden I'm like, I'm talking and I have no idea why I'm telling this story.
No, I'm laughing because you and I, like, we swim in the same pool, but I also was with you on the journey. So I was like, yeah. But this is a perfect time to segue into that overcoming under-earning archetype. And I know part of your work is also helping people not only have, like we're talking about before, like not only having the shiny thing in exterior, but like feeling that shininess within, you know? And I know that's a big piece of your work is like, yes, have the business, have the love, have that, but like the inner soul work. Can you talk to us about, I know that was kind of two different questions, but I think they kind of married in some way. Yeah. They dance.
Somehow in there. Exactly.
They're in partnership somehow. They dance together.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. There were many, 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 many years where me being in charge, me being in, like, Barbara Stanley once said to me, she's like, you are addicted to struggle. And I was like, fuck you, you're right. Like, oh my God. Like, no, she said not addicted to struggle. She's the one that said to me, you wear struggle like a badge of honor. That's even worse than like you're addicted to struggle. Like you wear it like a badge of honor. And I think there was a part of my growth that was around, and I came across Barbara Stanley through the overcoming under-earning work and her work with the School of Women the Arts and the students, but really getting like, oh my gosh, part of the whole archetype that I'll call the Wonder Woman archetype that like, and when I left my job, it wasn't anything to do with the school. This has been a pattern that had been going on for years in my journey, where it was like, I'm calling myself a recovering Wonder Woman. Like I am no longer interested in the game called how much shit can I accomplish? How much shit can I hold without being held myself? Because I spent many years, and that does lead to under earning, and it leads to under receiving, and it leads to being under supported and feeling alone and feeling like I couldn't trust others to hold me. I had lots of evidence to prove that inside of myself. And it was like, I got a lot of validation. I wrote this on my website. I'm like, I got a lot of validation for wearing that cape. So I wore that cape everywhere, to the grocery store, to the to my kids' school, to like wherever I could wear that cape. It was way more comforting to be comfortable, to be the one that could hold everything together, that had the answers, that could make you feel better, that could whatever. But what was happening underneath the surface, the shadow side of that, was I was depleted. I was ignoring my body. I was drinking a lot. I gained a lot of weight after I got divorced because I was having my kids 6 days a week because my ex's job was like, an erratic schedule. I mean, I just had all sorts of evidence for why I had to be the one holding everything, because I could see, because I had the skill, because I knew what to do. It was easier to do it by myself. I could handle it. I could handle it until I would explode. I would explode, or I'd go drink to blackout. Neither of those are a good recipe for a happy life. My friends were starting to be like, what's going on? I was like, I'm just letting off some steam. I don't want to be responsible, Donna. So I'd go out and I'd drink and think I'm having fun. But to the degree that I was drinking, it was like, I was really trying to like find some sort of like out for being responsible, Donna. And that part of me couldn't see a way out, couldn't see another option. And I started finding that the job that I loved, I was like crying after every event. I was twisted inside a lot, and I couldn't figure out what to do until I started to really hear myself be like, I need space. I need quiet. I need to be held and supported. I don't think I was being held. I had support, of course. I had people that I worked with and whatnot that were amazing. And my boss was great, but it was like this piece of me that everywhere in her life, as many women do, are the one fucking holding it together. And I just didn't have a place where I like, or a container big enough for me, or the voice to be like, I can't do that. I have to say no. No, unwilling, can't do it. Sorry, blah, blah, blah. You're going to have to take the kid more, but I had to like start taking personal responsibility. So I started noticing how unhappy I was, dissatisfied. Would you say that shows up for you? Like has shown up for you? It's like where you start to feel really chronically dissatisfied.
Oh, yes. And I was like, oh, I feel very disconnected.
Disconnected, dissatisfied. But did you feel, again, I was like, I just felt like I didn't really have a choice. I just was kind of like, even with all my knowledge, I was like, I thought this is what operating at a higher level looked like.
Yes.
It required more of me.
That's celebrated too. Like that's what's celebrated in the culture. You know what I mean? So it doesn't help the cause, like that it's like, well, this is like, don't you want to be this art? Like we've glamorized this archetype, which is part of
oh my God.
the problem,
I literally want to punch people when I see like articles that are, not that I'm promoting violence, but I feel this way. Like, you see articles that are like, oh my God, she went and bless this person. She has 2 kids and she went to master's degree at night and she takes care of her aging parents and she's a hero. No, she's fucking tired and people need to help her. Like that is bullshit. I mean, I never want to take away from someone's, if that's truly like a place of joy, but I've lived that. Strength should be celebrated, but it's like, there's a cost to that that's not talked about. I always want to celebrate a woman's strength. And even for me, it's like, I do want to celebrate. I fucking did that. I showed up. I handled lots of things. I moved through old patterns. I earned more money than I'd ever earned. I I learned a lot in the process too, but the shadow side was just, I was not being fed to the degree that matched the output, that it was not sustainable.
Yes. Well, I'm having this quote come up and from the metaphysical text, A Course in Miracles. And the quote is, I'm going to butcher it, but the ego is a loud, thunderous roar. And the voice of the soul is a quiet whisper. And why I say that quote is because the Wonder Woman is glamorized and she's a bad bitch and she's a badass and da-da-da. But why I was like, oh, this is the quote, is that your quiet whisper was actually the voice of your intuition. Because you wouldn't have, the Wonder Woman wouldn't have been like, Donna, now slow down and it was the voice of your soul that was like, hey, so that's why I love that the thunderous ego was like, go, 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 produce, produce, produce. And the soul was like, actually, this is not serving me.
Right. And it's interesting as I was going through that transition. So for people out there that might be feeling the same thing, it's confusing because guess what? That job was my dream job. And for many years was a place where I got to live. And I got to live my gifts and talents. I got to do some cool shit. I got to serve thousands of women, like in living their lives. Like that had been my dream. So it was really fucking confusing to have it all of a sudden not fit the same way. And then I kind of like made myself wrong, like that I was feeling this way. Maybe it's just, and so I think we do that. There's a period of time as a soul where we're like, so I want people to recognize we may have a whisper that it's wrong. And then there may be a period of time where there's shit that needs to get worked out. I think people beat themselves up like, I've known that this isn't a fit for me and I couldn't get myself to leave, or I couldn't, like I did that in my marriage. Like it'd be like, I knew it wasn't a fit for me. And what is wrong with me? It took me blah, blah, blah number of years to get up and leave. But it's like, I had so much to learn and to look through and to grow from before I could catch up to the, like, it's time to go. Like there's a divine timing. It's like that, might sound cheesy, but it's that thing about like getting in the cocoon and turning to goo and then being like, before the wings are strong enough, it's like you can't just crack open the cocoon and get out because you think it's time. It's like, there's a process here that needs to be handled. So, it's like not a straight linear shot. And for those of us in that archetype of Superwoman or Wonder Woman who are like, like, let me just get this shit done. Like, I know, okay, this isn't a fit anymore. Let me go find another job or whatever. It's like,
Yeah, yeah. Oh my God, this is so good too. But I guess I'll end. We'll talk about your work and where everyone can find you. But before we do, oh, I'm so frustrated because I have 77 more questions. I'm like, God damn it, we're on a roll. But let me ask you this because I know my relationship to this, but I know people might be listening and be like, yes, this is hot, like jamming out on this, but be like, how do I start to do? Like, I'm sure this archetype, this resides in a lot of humans. What the fuck do they do now? Like, what is like, how did you get in touch with your intuition? Where did that live in your body? How did you start speaking to it? Like, how can others start that journey? Because it's scary. So, yeah, how would you suggest to navigate that?
Such a good question. Because again, for me, it happened probably over a year or two period, to be honest. So I think if to slow it down, I would say to first and foremost recognize the first thought that came up is like to work with the dissatisfaction, to like just really like, I love how you talked about it. I didn't think of this at the time, but like to even like have a ritual for it, like like being like, I have this, I am feeling dissatisfied. And even though I don't know what to do yet, I honor that there's something coming up inside of me that's calling me forward. And the hard part is when you're in the dissatisfied stage, it's not always clear what the next thing is yet. So I would say first and foremost, do things that assist you with like really unpacking the dissatisfaction and make space for that. So that might be like free form writing. It might be your listeners or someone that went to the School of Womanly Arts. It might be swamping out, spring cleaning about it. There's lots of different ways that you can really just start to give it a place to be heard and seen. It could be that 2-chair process that I talked about. Talk to the part that's dissatisfied and find out what's going on. For me, it was always boiling down to like, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough space. Work was super complex, super layered, and constant. And I was starting to recognize, my soul was starting to say, we can't keep up this pace anymore. It's not fun anymore. It's not enlivening. It used to be. And so can we just get okay with that? It's not working anymore. So if you're in that stage, it's just in the dissatisfaction stage, give space to that. If you're someone who's gone through the dissatisfaction and is now in the place of like, you're hearing the whispers and you're like, but you're scared, it's like, that's okay too. Keep giving space to like talk into what you're wanting to create. So if it's like, for me, it was like, what would my ideal day look like? Like mine had a lot of space in it, like it does now. It'd be like, I get up, I don't start work till 10. I see maybe 1 or 2 clients a day. Like, all right, I'm only working a few hours a day. I'm earning more than I did when I worked, blah, blah. I just started to like spell out as many details as I was clear on, because that builds over time. But if you start breathing life into what you do know, because I think a lot of people will be like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, I bet you do. I bet you have more clarity than you think you do, right? Like where they're kind of like what you were talking about when they were saying, I don't know, you mentioned something earlier in the podcast where you're like, you don't hate all men. Like look for evidence to the contrary. So it's like, they'll think I don't have a lot of details because they don't have a job description, let's say, or they're not sure what the guy is that they want to date or the girl is that they want to date. And so it's like, get as clear as you can and keep breathing life into it and think of it as like, that's building your wing power in the cocoon, because eventually it's going to get strong enough that you're ready to come out of the cocoon and make the move. And these things are all exercises to start just honoring wherever you're at. But I am a big fan of like, take off the fucking cape, like put it down. You are worth more than like the to-do list that you have. In fact, if you sign up on my website, I have a love letter to women around like, you are more than. And there's like a whole litany. It's like, you're more than that to-do list. I don't remember it all off the top of my head, but if you sign up for my mailing list, you'll get the You're the More Than.
And everyone sign up for her mailing list. But I'm like, drop that pitch. But and I'm like, sign up for her stuff. But that's like, I feel that my heart, like that, drop the cape because, put down the cape because it's so part of our identity and it gets so warped into our worth. And it feels sometimes very scary to do that because like, this is my worth. That's how, will I be kicked out of the tribe? Will I be loved otherwise? And, so thank you for creating such a space where people can feel safe to do that, because That's fucking scary. So I want people to find you, but before we do, I know that I just said it was my last question, but this is my real last question. And don't, if you feel like this is, take this, leave this, whatever, but I know, we plan to talk about so many things. We talked about so many things, but is there any other nugget, insight, wisdom that you're like, wait, Erica, I'm dying to share this. I want the listeners to know this, or do you feel complete? But I wanted to make sure we had, one more minute or so just for you to give out your last little wisdom.
Oh, I love it. Well, two things came up. One is that I really want people to know that like the outer reality is a reflection of inner experience. And literally, like for so many of us, we were born being taught that if we want our lives to change, we go out and change outer world reality to then feel better. And you and I have hit on that it's like, there's so much more to the story. It's like, we really want to feel and see different things in our world. We can develop it by doing the inner work. So that's number one. And number two, one of the gifts of my time at the School of Womanly Arts was really learning how to create containers for people to feel, both the people in the classroom that were, receiving the work, what things did we need to put in place so the learning could happen, but also so that they would feel safe, so they would feel held, so they could have permission to like do the work that they needed to do. And also for the staff, like what did we need to put in place so that we could stay of high service without blowing ourselves out, which was a constant, we were constantly dancing with that. I really believe that coaching containers or therapy containers or workshops or things like that are all containers that support our learning and growth so we can be held. So I want to be a big voice for anyone listening, man, woman, non-binary, like however you express in the world. There is no shame in being in containers of support. There's no prize for doing it yourself. We all need someone. And no matter how high up you go in life or how high you elevate, or there's always space for growth and for learning and for being held in a container. So I'm just an advocate of like, whether it's working with Erica or working with me or working with other people, it's like, I just really encourage people to continue to support themselves in those ways when it's appropriate, when they feel like they're in a growth spurt, like that is of high service to yourself and very loving to like put yourself in a space where you get to be held and guided. That in itself can be very healing, just feeling held and guided.
Yeah, that's so good. I could comment on both of them, but I won't because of time.
Because we're going over.
I know. No, it's me. I'm like, tell me more, Donna. But I will say this. I always love when I see, really high earners, high achievers, not even about exterior, but people that do the work and they are consistently being held in containers. And I think that's so humbling. And so I just wanted to like frame that, extract that from your statement, that I think there's this delusion that like, I go to therapy and then I stop, or I go to this coaching thing and I'm done. It's like, that probably provided value, but like even these people that, we, like you said, we always need to be held, maybe we take a few months off, but like this work is a continuous practice, being held, being seen, being supported. So I just wanted to frame that because I think that's fucking amazing. We all need this. So speaking of needing this and your amazing work, tell us these things. Where can they find you? Give us the goods.
I love it. Well, right now you can find me at www.donnaotmani.com. And I'm sure that'll be in some sort of
show notes
note below. And right now I'm doing deep one-on-one work with people, but there's some good stuff coming down the pike in the next few months that for people that aren't down for one-on-one coaching. But right now I have a few openings in my client practice for people that are ready to learn how to work with themselves and do the inner work. So
Oh, everyone find her, get that newsletter, get on there, find Donna. Well, thank you. Thank you. I really, again, we're scratching this. We could just keep rolling out and jamming out. I love you so much. Seriously, thank you for coming on. You're the best.
And you too. Thanks for the work that you're doing. I mean, so many people, dating and love is the place. So I loved hearing more about how you do it too.
Thank you. Cool. You're the best.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Love you.
thank you. Seriously, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode and on this podcast journey. And if you loved what we talked about today and you know another human who could definitely benefit from what was discussed, I would so appreciate if you would go ahead and share this podcast with them. Don't forget, hit subscribe or follow so you never ever miss an episode. And the great news is you can always follow me, my work, my blog, my podcast on my website at www.wethelight.org. And hey, remember, life is so much brighter when we shine. I'll see you next time.